Hey there, it's Derek here from Pacific Coast Auto in Japan, and we're looking at a 1999 Mazda RX-7. And yes, this is a Mazda RX-7, where in Japan they were called the FNE RX-7 up until, I believe, 1996. Now the USA, actually this one's going to Canada, but Canada and USA have the same market. You only got the RX-7 from 93 until, I believe, 95 because of poor sales. Now everybody wants them and they're hard to find. Here in Japan, they were sold until 2002 with upgrades until all the way up until 1998. So this is a final edition. Okay, and a rotary, we like to give it a little rev before we turn it off, and that helps you with cold start when you go to restart it next time. So this car was bought from a dealership here in Japan, not from auction where we're usually buying the cars from. Dealers tend to be, I guess, easier to find something that you're really looking for that might be a little bit rare. If it is something that isn't as rare, you can usually find it at auction for a lower price. But certainly there is a reason to buy from dealers. I must say, though, you have to trust the dealers if you're going to be buying from them, and they're a mixed bag. Some of them are great, some of them are fine, and some of them are not so good. This car has a number of issues, and I'm going to point them out. Not so many issues, just two kind of major ones, and maybe some other things that weren't mentioned. I'm not too sure because I'm not part of the sales team, so I don't know what communication was given between the dealership and us. I feel it was probably not mentioned, a few of the things, and we'll get into them in a sec. I will say, though, this is a very nice low mileage car. It is a very low mileage car. And the body is generally in good condition. Okay? The mileage is only 59,000 kilometers, which is very, very, very low. And I have to say, and I can't express this enough, or I can't put it into people's brains enough, the RX-7s are a very risky car to buy because of engine problems. They are finicky and delicate, and we've had a lot of them break before they could export, and it's hard to get a shop that knows what they're doing because there's just so much here. They have a number of solenoid actuators in the turbo system that can go bad, and you don't know which one has gone bad, and they sometimes don't run well, and they sometimes have bad compression, and they might have bad compression at 40,000 kilometers, and they might have good compression at 120,000 kilometers. It's just a super high-risk car, and so anyone who wants to buy an RX-7, get told by our sales team, watch out, because these things are a handful. Now, having said that, it is one of the best cars you could possibly own. Well, maybe not own, but one of the best cars you could possibly drive. If you have a good running one, these are unlike anything else. One of the best cars. And it seems like this one has an engine and suspension. It's all original. No suspension's been modified. No exhaust has been modified. The body hasn't been modified. Everything is original. And this later model one got the full 280 horsepower, whereas the North American one was stuck with the 255 horsepower. Later on, you got 265, and then from 98 to 2002, you got 280, and it's super noticeable. I think that going from 255 up to 280 is exactly what the car needed, because I feel like the early ones feel a little slow, and these ones absolutely don't feel slow. And there's good reason why people love these cars. They compete in time attack, and they're usually one of the most competitive cars in time attack because the chassis is just fantastic in these. It is basically a small, lightweight engine with a decent amount of power in a small two-seater coupe, 4 seats here in Japan, 2 seats in North America, and otherwise wrapped tightly. Like most vehicles, you go from the tire up to the hood. This one is 10 centimeters difference. For most cars, it's like, chunky and big, and this thing is low and nice. Like, this is at knee height. It's really incredible to see one of these things up close and in person. And yeah, we've sold a lot of them, despite giving warnings to everyone. There are a lot of people we have diverted to other cars, but if you want an RX-7, there's really nothing else like it. Okay, now about this one in particular, I checked the coolant. It is all good. I actually didn't check the oil. I forgot to, so we're going to be doing that now. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but the oil's full and it looks clean. and I stabbed the intake here. Whoop. Well, it looks cleaner on the dipstick. It's a little bit dirty. It's pretty common in Japan, if you're a dealership here, to, well, not all the dealerships, to not do any maintenance on the car before you sell it. You bring it in from auction, you clean it, and you sell it. That might have been the case with this one, especially since the oil hasn't been changed. Or maybe changing oil is sold as an optional extra. It is a little bit sad. The automotive world tends to be the same in every country, and Japan's no different. Kind of like finding ways to sneak more money out of people so you can list the car for a lower price. That said, all it needs really is an oil change. Because we don't know the history of it too well, probably a good idea to change some of the other fluids. And I will say that the clutch felt a little bit weird. And let's see. I suspect this uses the same canister for clutch and brake, so it's fine. So I think that the clutch linkages are not very good anymore. So something to look into. Trying to shift, it felt wobbly. And like things needed to be tightened up. Okay, now into the bad part. The car's been repainted. On the hood and the headlights have been repainted at least once, but at a separate time from the rest of the car everywhere, excluding the rear bumper. The paint was very poorly done, and you'll see that in this report. Also, the front end looks like it may have been in an accident. Oh, there's somebody behind me. Sorry, guy. And you have really pretty bad lineup of the pop-up headlights. The pop-up headlight will rub when you lift it up, and it will judder as it's going up, and you have some flex cracks in the headlight cover there. Not too sure how this was expressed, whether the dealer even said that it had been in an accident or not. But yeah, this front bumper does not fit well at all. You can see in this area here, it should line up very well, and it doesn't. And on the other side as well. If you look here, this should go like straight down, but it kinks in immediately. It should be more like this. And then we have pretty big scars on this front lip. And speaking of the front lip, this larger lip that juts out more, as well as these lights here, are from the late model version of it. I don't know which year it was that crossed over. I think it was probably earlier than this final model. I think it was in 1996 that we got this front bumper. Yeah, the front bumper doesn't fit well, around the headlights doesn't fit well, and the hood to the fender is not a good fit. You can see it's very close on this side, and if you look straight down on these two paints, you can see the one on the hood is a higher quality paint than the one that's on the fender. There's puck marks and orange peel. You can really see it in the edge of those trees that I'm reflecting right now. Okay, I feel like most paint here in Japan is pretty bad. This is bad compared to your average Japanese paint. So like you see in here some orange peel and some pock marks. This one here is just a dent or something that got hit. Looks like we have original paint on this and the repaint here, so they took those out for the repaint, which is a little bit weird to have done. Okay, you come down here, you can really see it. Like so, the side shape of the car, I'll just pull this down. Because it's a little bit convex, it really amplifies any paint wave in the reflections. Some cars are just like that, and I find the RX-7 is one of them. Now the whole car is kind of like that, with little pock marks and orange peel effect. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much more. It just is what it is. There's a good example of what I'm talking about, how the side panel kind of accentuates anything. Okay. Rear spoiler was also painted. Rear bumper, oddly, was not. The paint is fairly good on this. Now, I believe this one to be a Type R version. I actually don't know because I didn't check the listing. And then, yes, you can get these with 265 if you got the RB version. But this one here, it says it's Type R Special Edition in here. Type R Special Edition with hard suspension. I'm not sure why they say hard suspension. I believe every one that I've ever seen said hard suspension on it. Maybe the automatics don't. And when you come down here, there's also a dent here. And this area here has a number of scratches, so we know that the dealer wasn't the one that repainted it, because you get these kind of scratches by putting your wallet on the roof of the car, or like your keychain or something, or binder, I don't know. And these are not going to be able to be polished out. If you do buy a car from auction, you're going to, this would probably be considered a A1/A2, probably more like an A2. And this here would be a U2, the dent that's in the side. Has a scuff along the edge of the door mirror here, and door mirrors have not been repainted. This one here has not been repainted. Fenders have been rolled slightly. Rolled slightly? Maybe not. No. I'm going to say no on that. And then these guys here are just Sakura petals that landed on the car and dried. They'll be easily washed off. They'll just come off like that. Okay. So this is the final model spoiler, or rear wing. It is, I believe it's adjustable. Yes, it is. So you can adjust it to a higher angle of attack. It's actually the front of it that goes down instead of the back that goes up on most of these adjustable spoilers, like in the Skyline GTR or the Lancer Evolution 5 and 6 have the adjustable rear wing. That is cool. You get a little note on here from somebody. What does this say? Alma Motors. Might have been the dealer that we bought it from, but I'm not sure. And boy, what a great looking design. One of the best looking cars of all time. And here's something, I gotta say this about the car. We may be directing people away from these RX-7s, mostly the FDs. The FC is pretty fine, in my opinion. But there is good value in them. This car competes on the same level as the Supra and the Skyline in terms of desirability, but only costs about 2/3 as much, because in that cost is baked in the risk that you have in buying one of these. You might have to rebuild the engine shortly after owning one, but include the rebuild of the engine into the cost of the car, and it's still less than a Skyline or a Supra, and it's more fun to drive. If you're more interested in a lighter weight car with great balance, this is the car for you. If you're more like a surgeon and want to make sure that you're very meticulous with how you drive, this is the right car. And the inside here, keep in mind, 60,000 kilometers, and you can't buy mileage on a car that already has mileage. I was just talking with somebody today who deals in classic cars, and he says stress on metal is something that can never be taken out of that metal. As you're driving, especially if you got hard suspension, which this one doesn't, so another positive for this one, the chassis of it is going to be bent. Just bent forward, bent backward, bent forward. Torsional rigidity is going to go down, and the stiffness is going to go down, and the car isn't going to be as good to drive after it's got higher mileage. 60,000 kilometers, or just under 60,000 kilometers, will make this an incredible car to drive. And will keep its value despite the bad paint. There might be reason to get this thing repainted. I don't know. So I deal with a lot of cars all the time. I'm always looking at the condition of the paint. For me, paint is a big issue. It isn't always the case for everyone else, and this is certainly a car that is going to look good to most people until you start getting into the how as good is the paint kind of car enthusiast. For me, I do it for my job. It's my job to find defects in cars, and so maybe I'm a little bit more critical than your average person. Okay, so I'm going to go into the rear seats here first. That is a fold-downable top cushion so that you can have more trunk space. As you saw in the trunk, there's not much space in there. Much more than a Miata, but in not as the same size package as a Miata. It's a little bit bigger, but not by much. These rear seats, again, not in North America. Look how much leg room that you get. Basically 5 centimeters. So there's no wonder why they didn't have them. You can see some peeling in the bottoms of the seats. This is maybe something that wasn't mentioned as well on this one as well. And just like the Supra, they tend to tear at the top. This one has not torn at the top, so that's good. The interior has been smoked in. It doesn't smell of cigarettes. which is nice. The seats are very nice and trim. I love a small seat. It's something about Japanese cars that I really like. And decent side bolstering here, decent bottom bolstering. This seat is the later model version of the seat. It has a cigarette burn here. Again, doesn't smell like cigarettes in the car, but there is a cigarette burn. There's also like some glue type stuff here and here. I think they were trying to like glue this and then got some on their pants and then they wiped onto the seat. We got a little bit of it here as well. Okay, steering wheel looks pretty decent. The steering wheels tend to get a lot of UV damage directly from the sun up here, and then they become brittle and take on damage quickly. This one, not so bad. Okay, the original floor carpet is looking fresh and clean. It actually had an auxiliary carpet. This piece here was in the driver's footwell, and then there was nothing. There was just a regular carpet in the passenger's footwell, and I suspected that would keep this. Oh, that's soft. Oh, very nice. Very high pile. It hasn't been squished down over years of use. That's one of the best that I've seen. I don't think those are original, but they might be. Come to think of it, I think they are. Probably original. I'd show you the headlight, but I don't want to rub it again. Just press this button and the headlights come up and down. They work, but they rub. Okay, tachometer right in the middle. Excellent. Good for driving. And because it has original suspension, you might be a little bit surprised at how soft it is. I love that about this car. I want to feel any time that I make an error. If you have too hard of suspension, you don't really learn how to drive and shift the weight balance in the car correctly. An RX-7 will absolutely give you that feeling. Some wear on the shift knob there, and a little bit of wear on the ashtray. Ashtray has a little bit of signs of having been smoked in, but not much. Okay, headliner is looking good. It feels nice to be in here. It feels like a nice low mileage car. And has an aftermarket CD player here with CD, USB, or auxiliary inputs. Okay, AC works fine. Clutch. It's a little weird to shift into gears while at the same time being a little bit like loose here. And there's a set of like bushings that go in here and they hold the shifter in place. This is hard mounted into the transmission, just like many rear wheel drive cars, so there's no linkages, but there are like a bushing set, and that might be too loose for you to accurately shift into gears. You can still shift into them, but you just have to be a little bit more deliberate and a little bit slower until you get that fixed. Okay, so that concludes the report on this 1999 Mazda RX-7, not FNE, the actual Mazda ones that they had for, I think, 3 years at the very end. RX-7 Type R. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.